Welcome to the Fresh Preserving Test Kitchen here in beautiful Daleville, Indiana. We're coming to you live from our Fresh Preserving Test Kitchen to show you everything that you need to know in the basics of food preservation. So tonight we're just going to have a fun, interactive, laid back, and well, actually I take that back. It's afternoon for you guys. It's nighttime here. But anyways, either way, it's still going to be fun, hanging out with friends. I'm here for any kind of questions that you have. And for those of you who are new to this type of broadcast, I just kind of want to go over a few things for you. So first of all, the screen that you're looking at, you can actually expand it. You'll see little arrows at the bottom of your screen. You can expand that. That'll make it a full screen for your viewing pleasure. You can also minimize it. Along the bottom of the screen where you see the video right now, you're going to see multiple tabs that will take you to all of the products we're talking about today, and will take you to the store where you can actually purchase all these items online. And then last of all, over to the right, you actually have a panel where you can ask questions. We have moderators here on staff to help answer all those questions, and some of those will actually be asked live to me on air. So to make my life more enjoyable and for you to have just as much fun, I encourage you to ask me as many questions as possible. Our team's ready to assist you. I'm ready to help you. It's going to be a fun night, and that's kind of what our plan is for today. So just to introduce myself, my name is Jessica. I've been with the Fresh Preserving team for 5 years, educating preservers just like yourself on the art of home food preservation. So I have a little bit of background in this, and this is something I do quite often, so you might get familiar with my face before you know it. So anyways, with that being said, today we're going to actually make a recipe called Easy Strawberry Jam. Very simple. There's actually a link to it on the tabs below the screen. And with that, I'm just going to kind of get started, and you can follow along and you'll learn everything you need to know about making delicious jams and keeping that fresh fruit flavor. It's actually the end of your season right now, I believe, so this is a great opportunity for you to capture those flavors and have those for the winter season ahead. So keep that in mind as we go through the broadcast. So today, the very first thing that I always talk about when I'm educating preservers like yourself on the skill of preserving, I want to always ensure that we know exactly what we're doing. We selected our recipe. And then the next important fact is you want to actually pick out all of your equipment. So you want to go through your list of what you're going to need, whether it's recipe ingredients. So today, like I said, we're making the Easy Strawberry Jam. So I have my strawberries, my pectin, I've got a little butter, sugar. I've got, actually I like to use a 9x13 pan to crush my berries, which I'll show you in just a little bit. My masher, I've got jar lifters, ladles, headspace tool, pots, pans. Everything that you may need for your preserving experience, you want to make sure you have those on hand prior to starting. So that's my very number one, biggest fact I can share with you, is make sure you have everything that you need. As you can see, we have quite a few items here in front of me, and we made sure that I had everything, at least we think we have everything that we're going to need for tonight's broadcast. So one of the things that is well, I guess it's a kit that's available in Australia, is our preserving kit here. We have our basic kit, which is actually what I'll be using this evening, so you'll get familiar with that. And we also have our deluxe kit. So either kit that you purchase, it's going to come with all of the utensils that you need, which I'll highlight here in a moment, as well as your preserving rack. It's going to come with 6 pint jars as well, which is for the big, the deluxe kit. And for your smaller basic kit, it comes with the 3. So you're going to see me working with some of that equipment as well. So the very first thing after you've got your recipe selected, all your ingredients, all your gear, is you want to actually wash your lids, bands, and your jars. You can hand wash the lids and bands with just soapy water. You don't want to put those in the dishwasher. So hot soapy water, and then you can dry them and set them aside. For your jars, on the other hand, you've got a few different options. First of all, you do want to wash them. Whether you wash them by hand in your sink, that's fine with hot soapy water. Take those out and allow them to dry. Or you can also use your dishwasher. And the great thing about using a dishwasher is you can also use that to pre-warm your jars. So it depends on what process works best for you, but if you choose to use the dishwasher method, you just want to make sure that you have your timing all figured out, because the reason that's important is because after you clean your jars, you actually need to pre-warm your jars. Why do you need to pre-warm your jars, you may ask? Well, what's important about that is you're going to be placing hot food into that jar. You want your jar already warm, because if you put hot food into a cold jar, you take a risk of thermal shock. So very important, hot food, hot jars. So I chose to use my personal favorite method, which is actually pre-warming my jars on the stove. So right here, I'm using the basic kit, and I have just a basic stock pot that we have on hand. Take this lid off. And the jars have been pre-warming. And actually, you can kind of see I've got the basket in here, so I just set the jars in the basket. And why do we have a basket? Another good question I can ask myself. So, even if you get the deluxe kit, which is this bigger pot, it comes with a rack. Now, what's important about the rack is this is going to prevent your jars from setting on the bottom of your pot. Again, this is important for a couple of reasons. One, you don't want the glass right on the bottom. You take a risk of thermal shock, again, jar breakage. Not going to be fun. And the most important reason is actually it's going to allow proper heat penetration all the way around your jar, which is very important as well because that's the whole purpose of preserving. You want to actually kill any microorganisms, bacteria that may be present in your food, and this heat penetration, the whole process of preserving, is what's going to do that for you. So there we go. Couple methods. You can even pre-warm if you're doing a larger batch. Today we're making about a 6-jar batch. If you're making a larger batch, you can always use the larger pot. That's going to work as well. So whatever your preference is, tonight I'm going to demonstrate this. So again, I've got my hot jars in my basket pre-warming. This back on here. So we're good to go. Lids and bands have been washed in hot soapy water. Jars are pre-warming. And now onto the fun part, the recipe preparation. Now with jams and jellies, there are 2 different items, 2 different products. Your jelly is made with juice, so it's a clear product. Whereas jam actually has chunks of your berries or your fruit. So how you get to this is actually, so with our strawberries, you take a potato masher and you simply just crush the berries with your masher. Pretty simple. And you don't want to over crush the berries. If you over crush the berries, or even if you put them in a food processor, what can happen is it actually will break down the natural pectin in your berries, which can cause a softer set. If you're going for a strawberry syrup, that's going to be okay, but usually if you're wanting to make strawberry jam, you want it to come out like jam. So just go ahead and crush this. And as you can see, it's pretty simple to crush the berries. That's kind of all you really need to do. Just have a masher. Like I said, I find it easiest in a 9x13 pan, and you want to crush 1 layer at a time as well. So once you would do a layer, scoop it out, go ahead and put that in your measuring cup for your recipe. Move this out of the way. So we've already pre-measured all of our ingredients. We have our strawberries, our pectin, a little bit of butter, and some sugar. So from here, we're actually going to go ahead and place our berries into our pot. As so. Then add our pectin. And for this particular recipe, we have, actually I have to sit this down, 6 tablespoons of pectin, which would be the equivalent of 120 milliliters of pectin, and then 1.3 liters of berries. Mix that in, add my little dab of butter. And the butter actually helps with preventing foaming. And foaming can occur just from the air trapped in your berries. So that's just a little trick, and it's in the recipe booklet that also comes with all of our kits, which will look like this. Zoom on in. It's a nice little booklet, gives you all the basics. So anything I talk about tonight, you can also find here in our little booklet that comes with every case of jars as well. So nice to have that on hand. Let's get this lit and going. There we go. We're just going to heat this up. And while I'm stirring, this might be a good opportunity. If you have any questions, start getting those flowing on in. We're going to have a little bit of downtime during the actual making of the jam. So feel free, like I said, the more questions, the more fun we have. So I can actually talk a little bit while we're getting this going about our pectin. Now pectin is a product that you may or may not be familiar with. And the neat thing about pectin, if you've ever made jam without pectin, you know you have to cook and cook and cook and cook to get that set. But with the pectin, you don't have to cook as long, which is great because you keep a lot more of that fresh fruit flavor in your end product. It takes out a lot of the cook time. You don't have to stand around quite as long. It's not so so tedious when you're using pectin. And our pectin, it comes in a flex batch container. What does that mean? Well, what that means is you have the flexibility to actually make however many jars you want. The label will open up and it gives you all the directions to make two 8-ounce jars, your half pint jars, right here. And the great thing, you can do it with regular sugar content or reduced sugar. So if you're like me, I'm very sensitive to sweet taste, so I prefer the more reduced sugar recipes, and it gives you that option right here in the pectin. And it's just a powder. I'm going to show that to you. Actually, we can pull that in. Actually, it's just a powder. It's derived from apple and citrus. So there you go. You got a good shot. Good. Just stirring a little bit more. And the pectin you can purchase. It's one of the items that should be on those tabs right below you. And you can even learn a little bit more about that by clicking on those links and checking those out. So hopefully, for those of you who are new to this, you can see so far, pretty simple. Select your recipe, prepare all your gear, get it all laid out.
So Jessica, we have Rob from Australia asking, where can I get the kits that you're showing today?
That's a great question. Well, one, you can actually get them from the tabs below the screen right now. You can click on those and purchase those online, or you can find them at your local Woolworths or Big W. And if you go to freshpreserving.com.au, you can actually look at a list of retailers based on your region. So that's something you can check out too and see if they have them available in your area.
We have another question from Therese in Australia. How ripe should the strawberries be?
Well, clearly, if you're picking your berries, you want to pick them at the peak of perfection. You're going to get the best flavor that way. If they're too overripe, that's going to affect your set. You're going to lose some of that natural pectin that's already in your product. So if you have them a little bit more, if they're a little too ripe, you want to make sure you use some underripe to kind of balance out that pectin a little bit. But the peak of perfection, so right as they're ready to be picked, that's a great time to do it. And a little tip too, if maybe you have a lot of berries and they're not all coming in at the same time, you can freeze some of those, and once you have enough to make the batch size that you want, you can actually de-thaw those frozen berries and use those as well. So don't worry if your strawberries or any kind of berry or any produce is coming in at different times. The berries, you can freeze them and then go ahead and use them with your fresh when you have the quantity that you're looking to make. Which is one thing I'll do, but another thing I like to do while I'm talking about it is sometimes I actually like to just go ahead and when I have my berries, crush them and measure how much I have after it's been crushed, and then determine which recipe I can make. So maybe I can only make 4 jars, but maybe another time I can only make 2. That's a great thing with the Flex Batch Pectin. You have that flexibility to do whatever works best for you. So keep those questions flowing. I'm just stirring away. So what we're doing right now is we put our pectin in, we put our butter in, we've got our berries, and eventually we're going to be adding our sugar. So right here, if you already have any of our jars or preserving kits, you're probably already familiar with the booklet that comes within each particular case. So if you open it up to, this is page 7, you can find our easy strawberry jam recipe. It's right here inside. It's also available on freshpreserving.com.au, so you can find it there. But either way, or on that tab that I've talked about below the screen, you can find it in a multitude of places. So feel free to follow along this entire broadcast if you'd like. But right now, just to kind of review, we've prepared our gear. Jars are warm. We're working on getting the berries up to a boil. So I'll just let you know. Step 2, after we've combined everything, we actually need to bring this to a full rolling boil that cannot be stirred down, which is what I'm working on right now, just trying to get it to that point. Once we get it to that point, I'm going to add the sugar. And speaking of sugar, I mentioned earlier that I prefer the reduced sugar recipe when I'm doing my preserving, so that's what we have here. You can do either. You can either do the full sugar or reduced. We give you that flexibility as well. That's something we like to do just to kind of make the recipe your own. Gives you a lot more ownership of the deliciousness that you're putting into your jars. So, you can always feel free. And speaking of kind of making things your own, some other varieties that we can do are variations when we're preserving jams. Like, for example, we could actually add the zest of a lemon to the strawberry jam. That's something that you could do just to bring out, it brightens that strawberry flavor and just gives it just a more interesting taste and makes it a little more like your own. And it's not just your run-of-the-mill plain strawberry, which is delicious nonetheless. But either way, you could do that, or something. Another option would be take a vanilla bean. Just slice it, take those beans out, add that to your jam, and gives just an interesting, neat flavor. And we have a lot of different variations, and you can always have fun when you go to freshpreserving.com.au. Across the top, there is a recipe bar. If you click on that, that'll actually take you to a wealth of recipes that we have available, even beyond jams and jellies. So take a look at that sometime. If you're new to canning, there's so many, home preserving to you. If you're new to it, then that's something that you can just take a look at, get familiar with. We have easy recipes all the way to more difficult, but don't be intimidated, because even those more difficult recipes, trust me, aren't really that difficult. There's just usually more ingredients and a little more time in the prep. They're not any more difficult. Preserving your food is as easy as boiling water and following a recipe. If you can do those two things, you've got this. There's no doubt about it. And you'll have those fresh flavors all year long. You're getting close to the end of your season. What are you gonna do? It's gonna be winter. It's gonna be cold. You want those flavors. Trust me, we just got through the nastiest winter here in Indiana, and I'm ready for spring. So I'm a little bit jealous that you've been in summertime, but I'm gonna have summer here real soon.
So Jessica, we had a question that came up, and it's funny because you and I were just talking about this, but Mel from Central Coast wants to know, do you sell the ball aprons?
Oh, unfortunately, you have to put about 9 years in here before you get one of these aprons. I actually just got it a few months ago. So, if you want to come work for us and spend about 9 years here, then yeah, you can get an apron too. But no, they are very cute, and that's something we can certainly pass along to our marketing and sales teams. You never know. And that actually brings up a really good point. Anytime that you want to see a recipe, or you can't find a recipe, or you're looking for a specific jar size, or you see my apron and you're interested in it, please don't ever hesitate to contact us. You can go to freshpreserving.com.au, click on Contact Us. There's a form. You fill that out, put your notes in the comment section, you hit the send button. That's going to come right here to Indiana, to our consumer affairs team, and we'll be able to, pass that along to our marketing and sales folks and let them know. And I can assure you that information gets passed along all the time. So please don't hesitate. We've got our Facebook page. Hopefully maybe you've seen us on there. If not, you want to go check us out. You can look up Fresh Preserving Australia, Ball Canning Australia. You'll find us on there. Go check it out. We have a great wealth of information that's available on there. We had the link to today's broadcast, and all kinds of tips, ideas, even for crafting. All this information is on there. We just have a great community of home preservers all over the world who are very eager and anxious to learn and share this, this art that we promote, which is really neat. So please, anytime, don't hesitate. Just like tonight, ask us questions. And if there's something you want, we don't know unless you tell us. So it's in your hands, folks. You got this. We're almost to a good boil here, so we'll be adding the sugar here momentarily.
So we had another question come through from Dan and Sydney. Are the lids BPA free?
Great question. And actually, the answer is yes. They absolutely are BPA free. That actually was a change we made a couple years ago now. And that's exactly why I encourage you to always let us know when there's something that you want, because we had so many people asking us about BPA free and wanting BPA free, and we wanted to deliver. It was certainly not mandated by anyone. It wasn't something we had to do. We chose to do that because viewers like yourself, it was important to you. And preservers all over, it was very important to everyone. So great question, and you can rest assured, BPA free. And another interesting fact, actually, while we're talking about the lids, is you may see information on the internet telling you to boil lids or simmer lids or do other things to your lids before use. All you have to do with our lids and bands, you just need to wash them in hot soapy water. That's it. There's nothing else to do to prepare them. So keeps it pretty simple. But that's a little tip too that you may or may not already know. All right. So we've got our boil going here. It smells really good. I wish you could smell this. The moderators can smell this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add the sugar here. It's 1 liter of sugar. Pour this in. And then we're going to stir this all in, get that sugar melted. It's like my favorite smell. This never gets old to me, ever. I think some of the folks in our office probably get tired of smelling it, but it never, ever, ever gets old to me.
So Jessica, I know something that we hear quite a bit on our Australia Facebook page is related to the jars.
Okay.
And what jars are available and where are they located?
All right, so great question. Just as previously with our products, with the kits, they're going to be located on the link below the screen right now via those tabs, so that'll take you to the Big W Stores website where you can purchase them online. You can also go to Big W or Woolworths to purchase these jars. And a great tip is if you go to freshpreserving.com.au, you can actually search for a retailer list and you'll know exactly who's carrying those products. And since it's coming to the end of your season, if you're anything like us here in the States, you may want to just go ahead and give that retailer a call before you make the trip out there just to make sure they have that product in stock too. You never know. All right. But yeah, anytime during the broadcast, feel free. You have all those tabs down there on the bottom. Go check out some of the items online. You can click those, come back to us. The questions are on your right panel here on the side. Feel free to keep typing away, asking us questions. We love to hear questions. But actually something too while I'm thinking about the jars. Jars. What are available in Australia? Well, you've got your 8-ounce quilted crystal, which is this size jar right here. You've got your regular mouth pint-sized jar, which is this one here. This is the jar that actually comes in both of your preserving kits. You get 3 in the smaller basic kit. You get 6 in the larger deluxe kit. And then also to a regular mouth quart. So those are the 3 jar size that are available currently in Australia. So hopefully you've seen these around already. We've had them out all season, so hopefully you're getting familiar with all of our great jar variety. See, this is what takes the most time. It's just the actual making the recipe, and you would be doing this for any other thing that you would be cooking at home. Just the preserving part is one step further. You're just simply going to process that in a boiling water canner. And jams and jellies can always be processed in a boiling water canner. High acid foods, so salsas, pickles, fruits, those are all high acid foods. So for the tried and true method to always know that your preserves are going to be great, those high acid foods can be safely processed in a water bath canner. Now with your low acid foods, so meats, vegetables, stews, soups, those need to be processed in a pressure canner. That's a different appliance. Why is this important? I can tell you why it's important. So the reason that you process your food is to actually kill any microorganisms and bacteria that may be present in those foods. We get a lot of preservers who contact us and they are like, my food doesn't have bacteria, it's organic or whatever. Well, sure, but everything has bacteria, microorganisms on it. I probably have them all over me right now. It's just normal, it happens. So what you're doing in the preserving process is you're actually killing those microorganisms. And your high acid foods, what can grow, they can, you need to just get to the boiling point. 212 will kill that bacteria, or molds, yeast. That's why you can safely water bath can those. If you're familiar with salsas or some tomato products, you have to add acid, like a vinegar, to get the pH, which is why you can safely do that in a water bath canner. Your low acid foods, so if you're doing vegetables, you're preserving vegetables, the bacteria that can grow on those types of foods actually require a temperature of 240 degrees Fahrenheit to kill those bacteria, which is why you have to do that in a pressure canner. That's the only way you're safely going to get those bacteria microorganisms killed. during the process. So very important when preserving, especially you don't want to waste anything. So if you always follow a tried and true method, you're never going to have an issue. I can promise you that. You'll never have an issue. Like I said before, if you can follow a recipe and boil water, this is easy, easy peasy. You've got this, not a problem. We even have another resource that's also available in Australia. It's our Ball Blue Book. So besides going to the booklet that comes with the jars or freshpreserving.com.au to the recipe section, our Ball Blue Book has over 400 recipes. So again, there's nothing difficult in this book at all. It's just a matter of following the recipe and making sure you stick to our tried and true method. We've been in the business for over 125 years. We know how to safely preserve food. Any recipe that we share with you is guaranteed to be safe for you, your family, your friends, anyone you care about. With that being said, if you do like to look around on the internet and you're looking at sites other than ours, you need to be very careful because there are a lot of recipes out there and they're not always going to follow proper guidelines to kill out those microorganisms and that bacteria. We have a method that's worked for so long, you could always trust that any recipe that you follow from us is going to be safe. So that's actually another big key to preserving. Pick out your recipe, have all your ingredients, have all your gear, and always make sure that the recipe is going to follow a tried and true method that's going to ensure that it's safe for anyone that you care about. All right, so we're about to a full rolling boil, and gonna let it roll for a whole minute. So that's what we're doing right now. Get the clock ticking down. If you have a timer, this would be a great time to use a timer just to make sure that you get that minute of full rolling boil. This is my favorite part, just the smells that you get when I do this at home. It's so nice, like even the next day when I come home, my house smells of strawberries, or if I do a mixed berry recipe, just that flavor. I don't even need any kind of air fresheners. It just, if you haven't done this yet, you really should try it. It's fun. It's a great thing to do with friends and family. One of the things I love to do is when we get new hires, about once a year, we try to get all the new hires in, and I get the opportunity to teach them the art of preserving. And having all my coworkers in here, it's just fun. We all kind of hang out and laugh, and it's just neat to see people who have no background in this or not a lot of memories around canning, and get them in here and see them preserve with me and get so inspired. It's so much fun. So if you have friends, this is a great way to get all together. If you have a lot of produce, you can make jam together and have a jamming party. All right, so we've got our full rolling boil. I'm gonna turn that heat off, which is great because it's warm in here. All right, so now this is where the fun begins. So as I mentioned previously, I have my jars actually pre-warming in my stock pot here with the basic preserving kit. I have my 4 jars, which is what I'm going to do, at least fill for you to show you that process of actually filling a jar. Let me grab my tongs. So your jar lifter here, this is going to come in your kits. This is very handy. You will be so appreciative of having this particular tool. I know some people have used like kitchen tongs and other things, and you're going to have a great grip on your jars every time with this. So let me just grab a jar, pour out that water, place it over here. Now this is very important. I'm about to put the jar down. You always want to make sure that that you're putting it on a cloth or some kind of towel or a cutting board, something to prevent direct contact to a cool countertop. I mentioned before you want to put hot food into a hot jar. Same thing, you're going to make sure that you're having a buffer because again, you could take a risk of thermal shock. So right here, we've got our tablecloth, so we're good to go. Little trick my friend Lauren taught me, put your funnel here to keep it from getting stuff all over your table, which is what that jar's for. So this is kind of where the fun begins. This is the art of preserving right here. This is where it all starts. You've got your recipe. I'm just going to actually remove my water, put this over here. You're going to take out, if you have foam, let me take a step back. If there is foam on top of your jam that's cooking here in the pot, you do want to skim that off. It's not harmful, it just will come to the top of your jar after processing and it's just not as pretty. So if you use the butter, which we do highlight here in the recipe book, if you use that, that actually helps prevent the foaming. So that's why that tip's so helpful. So we're just going to pour this in to the jar, hot food. And then you want to actually fill this. So every recipe has what we call headspace. You'll see that in all of our recipes. Fill to whatever space, headspace. And for this particular one, it's a 1/4 inch or
0.5 centimeters.
0.5 centimeters. There we go. You have to bear with me here a little bit on the metric system. So, filled it. We have this tool. It's our Headspace tool. It's going to come in both of your kits. And the really neat thing about this, you're going to see like this stair step here, which we can kind of probably zoom in a little bit too. You're going to see a stair step right there at the bottom, and that's what you're going to use to measure your headspace. We have our US measurements here, and for this one I said it was a 1/4 inch on our US measurement. So you simply take the stair step to whatever it is, whatever measurement you're looking to use, you place it on the side of your jar, and then this bottom here is what's going to come in contact with your food. And you want to make sure that it touches the very top of your food. This is your area called headspace. So I'm right on mark. But even if you've been doing this a long time, it's very important to still go ahead and measure your headspace. The headspace is going to help you get that perfect vacuum seal that's going to help lock in those fresh flavors from your summer that'll keep them that way for up to a year in your pantry. So very important. You may start to get very comfortable with this process and like, oh, it looks about accurate. You want to always go ahead and measure. I've been doing this for a long time, and every jar, I still go ahead and measure. What I'm doing here now is I'm wiping the rim. You just want to take a damp cloth. You want to wipe the rim, and this just makes sure that any food particles that may be on the lip of your jar here on the top are clean, and they're not going to come in contact with the lid itself and prevent a seal. So our two-piece lid. Two-piece lid, it's really neat because it's actually going to allow for venting during the canning process, and this is what allows for your vacuum seal. So I'll demonstrate, put this one on, and you just want to screw the band down to fingertip tight. What does fingertip tight mean? Well, I don't know, but I do. My fingertip tight is actually going to probably be different than your fingertip tight or anyone else's, but basically what that means is snug. You want to get to the point where there's just a little bit of resistance and just go a little bit further. You don't want to over tighten. That's something I hear from a lot of preservers that contact us. They're like, my lid's buckled, I don't know what happened. Well, if you screw your band on very tightly, that's not going to allow for venting to happen, and your lid is going to buckle. That's a preventative measure the air inside, the heat, the gases, they need to get out. All of that needs to get out, and if your band's on there too tightly, then that's what's going to happen. So if you ever experience a buckled lid, if you've never seen that before, you'll know exactly if it ever happens to you what that looks like. But if it does, it just means that your band was probably too tight. So you can always reprocess, which I can talk about that here in a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and fill a couple more jars just to show you this process, get you very familiar with how this works. Actually, let me grab a spoon. This is what happens when you're on live TV and get too excited. That's okay. So let me dip some of this out, because that's definitely over full. And the funnel, actually, that I'm using right now comes in your kits as well. So you're going to have this with you. So if you buy one of our kits today, or you already have one, or you plan to purchase one, you'll have all the tools that you really need to get started in preserving.
So Jessica, we have the same question coming in from both Paula and Rob related to, can you make up your own recipe?
Well, that's a very, very good question. And the answer is we prefer that you do not. Like I've mentioned a couple times, we have tried and true recipes. We know that these recipes are going to be perfectly processed. You don't have to worry about anything spoiling, anything going bad. The problem with making your own recipes or canning your own recipes, you don't actually know what the combined pH is. I'm going to get a little technical just for a second. Good. Every recipe has a combined pH, and that's what determines whether it's a high acid or low acid food. And when you start making your own recipes, you really don't know what that pH is. And because you don't know exactly how to process it, you don't know the processing time, there's a lot of factors that go into play, and then you just take a risk. And why even risk trying to preserve food that could possibly go bad or hurt somebody? So always follow a tried and true recipe. Like I said, we've got over 400 in our Ball Blue Book. You can go to freshpreserving.com.au and get plenty of recipes. And a lot of them, like I mentioned before, even with the strawberry jam, you can make your own by adding the lemon zest or adding the vanilla bean. We give you variations to a lot of our recipes so you can make them more of your own. But I actually do have a tip for you. If your recipe, maybe you're making something and you want to add a little extra heat or any kind of extra flavor, you can always add dry seasonings, okay? So dried pepper flakes, if you're making a pepper jelly, anything dry won't affect the pH. You will be okay to do that. So that's one way that you can have a little fun and make things a little bit more your own. Now, the reason you don't want to use fresh is that can change the pH. So to get out of untechnical, have a little fun, but don't get too crazy. You want to stick to a tried and true recipe. That's the only way we can guarantee that your food's going to be perfectly preserved, you're not going to lose anything, and you're going to have it for up to a year in your shelf. You can use it. You've got winter coming up. You're going to want these fresh flavors from your summer. Stick with a tried and true method, and you're going to have great success every time. I promise you, if you do that. So great question. All right. Keep them coming. I love the questions. Just saying. Fill in another jar. Again, hot jar. Actually, you may have noticed I'm taking one jar out at a time. Again, this goes back to the whole theory of thermal shock. If you pull all of your jars out when you go to fill them, some of those jars can actually start to cool, and then as you place that hot food in, you take a risk with that too. So it's very important, again, to take out one jar at a time when you're processing or preserving a little bit more. This is exactly why I said it's important to go ahead and measure, just so you know exactly you have the right headspace every time.
What happens if your headspace is you have too much or too little headspace?
It's going to affect your vacuum seal, so you take a risk of it being able to come unsealed. And what happens is, if you have it too full, then your food's going to be up on your lid. It can cause it to come unsealed. That food can actually siphon, get under your lid. So, if you're taking the time to do all this processing, I mean, it's not like it takes a lot of time, but you're just making the effort to try to have something that's on your shelf all year long. Follow the tried and true method. Go ahead and make sure you measure. Too much headspace, we don't recommend. Too little, it could really cause a problem with the lid sealing. So it doesn't take that much more time to go ahead and measure, but great question, Miss Lauren. And they're hot, so you always want to make sure you have some kind of a glove or pot holder or whatnot. Again, just fingertip tight. There we go. Jar lifter. Place this in. I've got one more jar to fill for our canner here. I'll fill this one up, and then I've got a few other fun things I can share with you about preserving. The last time, so here you go, folks. Last time, hot jar. You want to have it on some kind of a barrier to prevent thermal shock. You don't want a hot jar on a cold countertop. So hot jar, hot food. Use your funnel. It helps keep things less messy. It comes in the kit, both kits actually. And you may or may not have noticed, I'm using the 8-ounce quilted crystal jar, by the way. That's a perfect jar for making jams and jellies. So if that's what you're looking to make, I highly recommend making sure that you get this jar in your inventory at your home. And the fun thing too about the quilted crystal jar, there is a little area on there where you can put your labels. We make a dissolvable label, which is awesome. It's also available in Australia. And the cool thing about it Because if you ever put a label on glass before, you may know it's very difficult to get that off sometimes. So the dissolvable labels, they come in a pack. Right here you get 60 labels in a box. They're an oval shape with a little scroll design, plenty of room to write what your recipe is. And something I will say, when you're using a label, you always want to put the date too that you process your food. Why is that important? Because you want to, we recommend the shelf life of 1 year. So if you process your food, you do the preserving, then you have 1 year to place it in your pantry and use it. Now granted, people are like, well, my jam's 2 years old, or my salsa is, and it's still sealed. You know, it's going to be safe, but over time, what happens is it starts to diminish, and the quality, the nutrients, the color, the texture, different things can start to change over time, which is why we always recommend go ahead and using it within the year. So, little tip on that. This is the last one I'm going to fill for the canner. So again, lid, band. These were hand washed with hot soapy water. Fingertip tight. Let's take this, place it on in. And this is where the fun begins. So I've mentioned a few times now that if you can follow a recipe and boil water, you can handle this. So right now I'm going to turn up the heat to a medium-high heat. And we're going to get this going to a full rolling boil. Once it gets to a full rolling boil, at that point we'll put the lid on. We're going to start our processing time. So for jams and jellies, it's typically a 10-minute processing time. In the recipe book, you can actually see, we tell you everything you need to know. You know, it says process filled jars and boiling water for 10 minutes. Every little step is going to be right here in this booklet. I've mentioned this multiple times already, but in the, on freshpreserving.com.au, everything's there. There's getting started guides, all kinds of tutorials, all kinds of documentation, anything that you need. So maybe you missed something tonight and you want to look up something very quickly about how to process or preserve your foods, you can find that all there on the website. And then another resource, this is something that I think anyone who preserves food should probably have in their kitchen. This is one of the best guides. I can honestly say that mine is very well loved. This is a brand new copy, but the copy I keep here, it's worn, and I'm in this book every day going through looking. You know, part of what I do is I help preservers like yourself with canning questions, preserving questions, even freezing questions, any kind of questions with preserving your foods. Everything is right here. We've got some great pictures to kind of show you the different appliances you can use, the different methods, how to fill jars. We go through the water bath process, the pressure canning process, all of that. Everything, like I said, everything you could possibly need to know is on here. And one of the best parts is the troubleshooting guide in the back. So I mentioned before, maybe you experienced buckled lids. That's something you could look back in here, you can find. Maybe you have cloudy pickles and you want to know why. That information is going to be back there too. So something nice to kind of have on hand. If you don't have it already, that's like one of my top picks of something that you might want to keep you know, handy when you're preserving your foods at home. Actually, you know what? I mentioned a couple things earlier. So I had a question about headspace. So maybe you have enough jam that you can't completely fill a jar. And that happens. We have, you know, there are times even here in the kitchen we may not be able to completely fill a jar. So for example, I'll do that right now, because I think we're going to have a perfect amount left to show this. So you're filling your jar, you're doing a big batch, and all of a sudden you end up with a jar like this. Now, we mentioned before that I don't really recommend processing with the incorrect headspace, and clearly that's a lot of headspace right there. Way too much. You've got a couple options. You can use it hot, put it on some ice cream, put it on some pound cake, angel food cake, cheesecake, anything sweet and delicious. You could put this on nice and hot, right? Or you can go ahead, you still want to clean off the rim probably, you can go ahead and put a lid and band on it, let it cool. You may actually hear it ping, but that does not mean it's sealed. But you can, after it's cooled, you can put it in your refrigerator, and you have 3 weeks to eat this. I could probably eat this in a couple days, but you have 3 weeks in your refrigerator. Or this particular jar right here is also freezer safe. So So you don't always have to just can in this particular jar. Any jar that has straight sides like this was can be put in the freezer. So again, you want to let it cool, because just like I mentioned before, hot food, hot jar, you don't want to put a hot jar into a cold freezer. So let it come down to room temperature, and at that point you can put it in your freezer. Then it's going to be safe for a year in your freezer. But that's a couple options. This happens quite often sometimes with recipes. So don't be upset if this happens. It's not a lost cause. Got multiple things you can do with it. So just something to think about if you do end up in that situation. So very, very common here. And while I'm talking about freezer safe jars, I do want to highlight that the current jars that are available in Australia, so you've got your 8-ounce quilted crystal, you've got your pint regular mouth jar, and then the quart jar. The pint and the quart jar are not freezer safe, so don't try to put these in the freezer, okay? Because you may experience jar breakage. Why can that happen? Well, as your food freezes, it expands, and it's going to put pressure on your jar and cause it to break. We actually get a lot of contacts from preservers who have this question like, I put my quart jars in the freezer and they're breaking. Why? Well, they're not freezer safe. So you just want to make sure that you always only use jars with a straight side. So just like this, think about, it's kind of cheesy, but it's something I share all the time. Think about us. We have a neck and shoulders, right? This jar has a neck and shoulders. You can see kind of bows out. Any jar with a neck and shoulders, you do not want to put in the freezer. So if you have a jar that's in that shape, just a side note, don't freeze in this particular jar. But this jar, on the other hand, you can do that, so, which is really great. And actually, while I'm here, you can maybe see there is a smooth side, it's like a smooth oval right here on the front of the jar. And if you have our dissolvable labels, they're awesome. Our jars come with labels, they come with sticky sticker labels, but the dissolvable labels are so innovative. You can just use this, take your little sticker off. You can write, today's date on here, strawberry jam. You just peel this off, and then you would stick it, you've got the oval here on the front that you could stick that on. If you want to put it right on the lid, that's certainly fine too. But you just place it on here, and then you know exactly what you have on. And I have a lot of favorite things. You're going to find out that every time I'm doing any preserving, everything's like the best thing ever, because all of the tools that we have make things so easy. It's so easy. I can't even begin to stress how simple this process is, and to keep those flavors all year long by just boiling it in some water. It's awesome. But anyways, on here you eat your jar, and you're already going to be like, oh, I got to take this label off. Well, this particular label, you just put your jar in the dishwasher, and it's going to rinse away. You put it into the water in your sink, it's going to wash right off. There's no scraping or trying to get that label off. If you've ever tried to get a sticker off a glass, it is quite frustrating. At least I think so. So great little add-on. If you're into it, try it out. You get 60 in a box, so something fun there. I'm going to take a look here and just check to see if we're getting close to a boil.
While we're waiting for it to boil, we have
okay.
a question from Sarah in Melbourne. Where can I get the wide mouth jars?
Ooh, well, right now, you can get them if you come to America. However, that's something, again, like I've said many times, if we have a lot of interest in a particular size, we can share that along. So right now, it's only the regular mouth jars that are available in Australia. However, if you go to freshpreserving.com.au, click on Contact Us, you can fill out the form, put in the comment section, just tell us how much you really want those wide mouth jars, or go to our Fresh Preserving website, I just said that, or go to Facebook. Anywhere that you want to go, just share that with us. The more contacts that we get about a particular item, I can assure you get documented and then get passed along. So I'm seeing Big W, the 20th of September.
2014, September.
Oh boy, September. Look at this. Live breaking news. Breaking news from the Fresh Preserving Test Kitchen. Nice. So September 2014. Well, there you go. I stand corrected. I'm sure you're happy that I stand corrected. I can tell you right now, I've seen so many requests for that. on our Facebook page. That's something I look at all the time. So we even were getting emails. That's really exciting news. Well, hey, look at that. Breaking news. That's so exciting. Yay. I'm getting excited about the littlest things sometimes. It's fun. But the wide mouth jar, personally, is one of my favorite jars. I like to drink out of it, although I also like to drink out of the regular mouth too, which I'm going to take a sip now. But they're great to drink out of. You may see that actually if you do any searching for crafting ideas or anything, because the jars can be used for other things besides preserving. You're going to see a plethora of ideas, and drinking out of them is one of my favorite things. It's not even difficult. You just fill it. It's so cute. All right, so we're going to go ahead, get this on. And then we want to watch the clock for 10 minutes. So this is where you would set your timer. I'm actually going to set, my timer will be this, my phone. So you just want to set a timer for 10 minutes. And this is important because every recipe is going to have a different processing time. Now with your processing time, these recipes are 10 minutes, but you may find some that are 25, and then you may find some recipes that are 15 minutes for a pint-sized jar, 25 minutes for a quart-sized jar. So they're going to vary, so it's always important that you actually take the time to look at the specific processing time for your recipe. Excuse me while I set my timer here. But that's important because I mentioned before you want to make sure that you kill any microorganisms that may be present in your food, and that's part of the process. And what's happening during that time is, and I mentioned too, actually I can go back to your canning rack. You have the jar off the bottom. You want to make sure that the jars are all separated too, so you have proper water circulation all the way around your jar. Something I neglected to mention before, so I apologize, is in your canner, you actually want to make sure you have 1 to 2 inches of water above the jar. So the jar should be completely submerged. And maybe we captured that earlier on the camera, but your jar should be completely submerged in water. What's going on then is that water is it's hot, it's boiling, it's penetrating all the way through your jar. It's going to kill any microorganisms and ensure that you have a preserved food. It's going to be great and healthy and stay on your shelf for at least a year. And again, it's almost the end of your season. You want to capture those fresh flavors and have them in the winter time. I've been snacking on some things I made last summer. I have some green beans still in my pantry that were awesome, that we pressure canned last year. So you want to make sure you keep those flavors all the time, and this way too you don't have to worry about anything going to waste. For me personally, when it gets to the end of preserving season, sometimes you just have such a bounty of produce. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this? Well, here's a great idea. You go ahead and you preserve it following any of our tried and true recipes, whether it's in our Ball Blue Book or freshpreserving.com.au. You can find ideas on our Facebook page. There's just so many opportunities to make sure you preserve those foods. And the great thing is, too, you know exactly what's going into your food. Do you know that when you go to a store? No, you don't. But when you make these at home, I know exactly what went into my jam. Fresh strawberries, pectin, sugar. I even did a reduced sugar, just a dab of butter. I know exactly what went into this. There are no preservatives. I mean, how much better is that? You know exactly what you're giving your friends and family. I like to actually make my jams and jellies, and then I gift them. My brother, he was actually kind of hesitant when I first started giving him jelly and jam because he was weirded out by it for some reason. And then once he tasted it, the flavor that you get from freshly made jams and jellies, even a year later, the flavor is, at least in my opinion, it's unbeatable. And you have that. So those flavors of all of your produce that you have right now coming out of your gardens or coming out of your stores, you're going to have, in August, September. You're going to have that during the winter seasons. Right there, great flavor, knowing exactly what goes into it. Doesn't get much better than that. And all you have to do is boil it. Simple, right? So again, little fact here too. You always kind of want to keep your eye on your canner. We've had preservers contact us before, and they're like, my lid's bumping up and down, and water spurting out. Well, that either means your water level's too high, or you may have your canner a little too hot. So something kind of keep your eye on when you're preserving. I would recommend that you don't leave the kitchen when you're canning, you're preserving your foods, because you just want to make sure that you have that full rolling boil the whole time, because again, for the food safety issue of it. So these tried and true methods, I promise you, promise, follow any of our recipes, you're going to have great success. So keep that in mind whenever you're preserving. And something else I actually was playing around on here earlier, I can show you a little bit probably, but like on the freshpreserving.com.au page, just pulled it up on my iPad. You can pull it up on your computer or whatever, but up here in the top we have a getting started section. Here, recipes, fresh tools, products, and community. So we have all this information here across the top. And one of the cool things that I really like about the page is just having everything right here. You can see our Facebook feed. So maybe if you're not a fan of ours on Facebook, go to freshpreserving.com.au, and actually over here to the right of your screen, you're going to see our Facebook feed live right here on the page. So just, you can always just, wow, just like that. Live TV, you never know what's going to happen. But like I mentioned too, so, and the Pinterest link is there too. But for recipes, maybe you're new to canning, you can actually search for just the easy recipes, which is great. You know, that's one of the benefits to using the website maybe versus the Blue Book, because you know exactly what are going to be the more simple recipes that are great for beginners. So we make sure that we highlight that for you. Maybe you have just strawberries. You can actually click it right now, strawberries, and all of the recipes that contain strawberries are going to pull up. And for strawberries, we actually have 6 pages of recipes available on freshpreserving.com.au that you can click through, take a look, see what you want to make, all these creations that you can make to save for your winter season ahead. It's awesome. You can like them on Facebook if you want. Yeah, and you can even select what your process. So both of our kits here are for water bath processing. So you can just select, you can go water bath preserving, you can pick your berries, you can pick your, easy, and that recipes, all those recipes are going to pop right up. So just a great resource for you. If you're not familiar with our website, please check it out. We've got all kinds of information here for tips and tools. You can check that out. So if you haven't done so already, check out freshpreserving.com.au, and we are getting awfully close, probably. Yeah, I like this. I just got to show this again, so you know what that awkward look was on my face. My moderators, they can talk to me. I'm okay with it. They're being shy, folks.
We just thought, I know the 3 simple steps is very important, so we thought we could just quickly kind of walk through just how simple those 3 simple steps are.
Absolutely, it's a great idea. We really do have fun in here, I promise. We do talk to each other. So in the booklet, we highlight, 1, 2, 3 easy steps. So when you just flip through the booklet, again, it kind of goes through the different jars, the different processes. But the best part is we really break it down into 3 easy steps for you. So the first step, fill your jars. You saw how easy that was to do. We break it down, so it says follow a recipe. Whoa. Hold on, folks. Okay, that's what I was talking about when I was like water spewing everywhere. That's what was just happening. That's why you don't leave your kitchen, folks. So, anyways, fill your jars. Follow a recipe, which again, you want to always follow a tried and true recipe, which all of our recipes are. So we're a great resource for you if you want to ensure that you have perfectly preserved food. So follow a recipe. You're going to fill each jar, which you saw that I did. We just poured it in, check the headspace. Something that I will mention in here, it says remove air bubbles. That's something I didn't have to do with jams and jellies. Now, if I was doing a salsa, actually this headspace tool also acts as a bubble freer. So what you would do with this, I can show you with this jar. What you would actually do, imagine that this jar is full. You would take this in, or a rubber spatula, or just something non-metallic. But this is a great tool you get in the kit. You might as well use it as well. But you take it down the side, pull it in. You go all the way around your jar doing this, and this is going to free your air bubbles. I will recommend freeing your air bubbles and then checking your headspace, because that can actually change your headspace. So you want to do that. So remove your air bubbles, check your headspace, wipe your jar, which again is very important to prevent any food particles from coming in between your jar and the lid, and then you wipe. Flip to the next page, you adjust your lid and band, fingertip tight. Okay, pretty easy. Boil jars to preserve. So again, you saw that I placed the filled jars, which I took out one at a time, place the filled jars into the canner. You process for the duration of time indicated in the recipe, which this one was 10 minutes. At that point, you want to actually remove from the heat. So I would just turn my gas off and let it cool. What's going to happen here is once you remove it from the heat, you need to wait an additional 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you can take the jars out. So step 3, which we'll get to here actually really soon, when you're taking the jars out, how to check the seals. There we go. I told you it was soon. So we'll do step 3 right now. So the neat thing, well, actually we can talk about that here in a second, because you want to turn off the heat. So you've got 5 minutes that you want to allow those jars to cool. This is actually part of the process. So you know, even though it's not the processing time, letting them cool down, you always want to follow that step. So this is one that you don't want to skip. Trust me, you can wait 5 minutes. You've got this. This is a great time too, if you're anything like me, to go ahead and start cleaning some of the tools you've been using in the kitchen, getting them cleaned up either for your next batch of food that you're going to preserve, or just to go ahead and clean up your kitchen for the day, whichever. This is a great opportunity to do that. So what's going to happen next is once these have cooled, actually 5 minutes. All right. So actually, we're going to take these out. Now, if you were using the large kit here and you have the larger canner and the larger rack, you're going to pull out each jar one at a time out. You can pull the rack out, but it could be heavy depending on what size jars you're using. So whichever works best for you. I personally, I'm not quite that strong, so I take out one jar at a time. Now with the basic kit, what's so neat about it is you actually have a basket. So with that basket, and you can probably see on the front of that box there, but you'll see it here in a second. You may have noticed it before. You can pull the whole thing out. You can take it out, set it down on your counter, and let them cool. Unless you're going to preserve some more, but otherwise you could just let them cool like that. Kind of like I mentioned before about making sure that they're spaced in your canner, whether you're using the basic or the deluxe kits. When you take them out and allow them to cool, you do want to place them again on like some kind of cloth, whether it's a towel, tablecloth, something, so you have a barrier between your hot jar and your cool countertop. You want to space them out an inch or so apart. That's going to allow them to cool evenly, which is important. And what's going to happen during that time, if you haven't preserved before, you're probably going to freak out just a little bit, because you're going to start to hear this like ping, ping, ping sound, which for a lot of people who've been preserving for a while, you get pretty excited about. Now the thing about the ping, which you may see online somewhere, people talk about pinging. If you hear the ping, it is very exciting because you know you're getting a seal. However, that does not ensure that you have a good seal. So just because you have that doesn't mean that you're done. So again, don't be freaked out if you start hearing that pinging sound. But once you get all of your jars out and they're cooling, this is the most difficult part about preserving. You have to let them set for 12 to 24 hours. It's so hard to do that sometimes, and especially too when you're removing them, you might notice that the band's a little loose after the processing and you've gone through your preserving process. That's natural. Tip, do not readjust the band. Let the band stay loose, it's fine. What's going on is, during all that boiling, it just kind of shimmied a little bit. It's going to be fine because the band itself, let me grab one. The band itself is simply a placeholder. So I mentioned before that you don't want to screw these down really, really tight, because this lid here inside, it needs to be able to hover. It's going to hover, get my star out, it needs to hover during that processing. So as you're preserving your food and the gas isn't coming out of your jar because it's boiling, right? It needs to be able to hover. This, with a 2-piece lid, this band is actually just going to keep it right in place. It's just going to keep it centered on the jar. That's the only purpose of the band. Okay? Just going to hold it here. Because Once they've cooled, you actually want to remove the band to check for a seal. So once you've removed the band, actually, you know what? I'll grab this back here. Once you remove the band, a couple things you want to look for. You want to look to make sure that the lid itself is concave. You want to make sure that if you push on it, it doesn't flex. You also want to go around, and or at least for me personally, I have to go around and kind of add a little pressure just to ensure that it's got a good seal. This jar does. So you can actually store it without the band. The neat thing about this, well, let me back up. You want to make sure you wipe the jar because sometimes food does seep out a little bit. So we want to wipe off the jar, make sure all food particles are off of it. But we recommend storing it just like this. Why, you may ask? Because it looks a little strange. You probably are used to seeing jars with the band on, which is fine. But a couple things can happen. If you have moisture under your band, that can cause rusting. So if you do decide to put your band back on, make sure everything's dry. You don't want water to get in there and for it to rust, and it's going to get very difficult to get off. And if it starts to rust your lid, you'll actually lose that vacuum seal and your food can spoil. So it's up to you. It's purely your preference. However, if you do take it off, the cool thing is the band is reusable. The jars are reusable. The lid, on the other hand, is not. So this is a one-time use product, okay, folks? One time. For processing, at least. So when you're preserving, you can use it once. However, if you want to go ahead and recycle it by using it for freezing your produce or your jams, or you're going to use it for storage, or something I've seen online too is people will use this as markers in their garden, and they'll say like oregano, and they write on it, which is just a really fun way to reuse your lid. But the band itself can be reused. So if you store your food without the band, you have this available for your next next preserving session. So you can have them in your drawer or whatever. Always you can go ahead and use this over and over and over again. So something to think about. And also too, let's just say that maybe you were preserving your food and you got distracted and you didn't set a timer and you're not really sure if you processed your food long enough, and you think that you did, but you're not really sure. If you underprocessed, any microorganisms, bacteria, they're going to have a smorgasbord. They're going to go to town and have like a buffet of food here in this jar. They're going to eat everything. They're going to love you for life. And they're going to create gases. And those are going to cause your lid to unseal. If you don't have the band on, I promise you're going to notice. You're going to smell it in your pantry. You're going to know something's not quite right. So if you have your band off, that really just helps with knowing if you actually do have a problem. But if you followed our tried and true process all the way through, then you have nothing to worry about. Promise you that. So you may have noticed I walked over here and I took the lid off and everything's good to go. So I'm going to pull this right on out. Like I mentioned before, it's in the basket. Pull this over here. And you can just let them cool. How easy is that? So if you have the basic preserving kit, you can keep them in here. Or if you do choose to go ahead and, make multiple batches, which, here it is, which is great too, because as you can see, it was only 10 minutes processing. You can go ahead and actually take these out. Again, I mentioned you want to space them apart. Oh, you may have heard that. Little ping. Pull these out. Oops. And another ping. There you go. You just let those cool. I'm going to put this back here in my pot. So if I wanted to go ahead and do another batch, I have that available. Oh, and there's the fourth one. Yay. Again, that does not, maybe you heard it, I can't tell, I can hear it here, but the pinging sound was happening. So yes, it's exciting when that happens, but just remember that does not necessarily mean that you actually have a good vacuum seal. So you always want to check 12 to 24 hours later. Once these have cooled, 12 to 24 hours later, so the next day you can come back, you check your seals. If they're good to go, you go ahead and put those in your shelf, in your pantry, and they're good for up to a year. Now I will say, if you do notice I mentioned buckling lids, or maybe your lid doesn't seal, don't worry. You can actually pour your recipe out, whether it's pickles or salsa or jam. You can pour that out, clean your jar, brand new lid, okay, clean band. You can actually go ahead and reprocess for the same duration of time. So if the recipe is 10 minutes or 25 minutes, depending on your recipe, you just reprocess it the same way you did the first time, and then you'll be good to go. So don't be intimidated if that happens to you. It happens to everyone on occasion. Don't worry. Or if it does happen and you don't want to reprocess, you can go ahead and put it in your refrigerator. and go ahead and enjoy it now, because I can promise you this stuff's delicious and it'll go by really quick. So hopefully that kind of covers everything for you for the basics to preserving. If you have any more questions, I can answer those now, and maybe we have some, maybe we don't. Let's check out. Are we good?
Good now.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, again, I can't stress enough. If you have any questions or you have any ideas or your particular products that you're looking for in your retailers, please, please, please don't hesitate to tell us. Go onto our Facebook page, go to our website, freshpreserving.com.au. Click contact us. It'll take you right to our form. Our consumer affairs team will be sure to share that with our sales and marketing teams. I can assure you we look at every one of those. I check those posts on Facebook. We know what's going on. We want to listen to you. And clearly with the wide mouth jars, apparently that's happening. So that's pretty exciting. That's a perfect example. Now as for the apron, you're going to have to probably push a little harder on that one. But don't hesitate to ask. And with that being said, I'm just going to go over our products just one more time before we head out of here. So we've got our 8-ounce quilted crystal regular mouth jars. We've got our pint jars in a regular mouth, and then the quart jar, which is a larger jar. Just to highlight, this is a freezer safe jar. The other two are not. Just a little note. We have 2 different kits for preserving. We have our basic kit here, which is the one that I was using with the basket. It comes with the funnel, the headspace tool / bubble freer, as well as the jar lifter. So that's all available in that particular kit, and it comes with 3 of the pint jars, which is this size here. But as you may have noticed, I actually can put 4 of the 8-ounce jars in here, so don't feel like you can only use this with the pint jars. You can have a little fun. And then we have our deluxe kit here, so it's going to be much larger. If you want to do larger quantities, you're going to use the quart jars. It's great for that. It comes with the rack inside, so you have a big sturdy rack. And something too, I can show you real quick, since I didn't get to highlight this. You've got silicone here on the lid and on the side, so you don't have to worry about getting your hands all burnt. And the rack itself actually can sit right here into your pot. So something I didn't get to show earlier, but this is kind of handy too, and you can lift. It's pretty easy to use. Same process as with the basic kit. So either way, you've got those 3 easy steps. Both kits, as well as our jars, come with our helpful booklet that shows you the 3 easy steps, give you some recipe ideas. Again, as always, you can go to freshpreserving.com.au. Ton of recipes there. If you go ahead and purchase the Ball Blue Book, over 400 recipes there. You can go to our Facebook page, which is Ball Preserving and Recipes Australia, which is on the back of here. You can also find us on the website. So we've got plenty of resources for you, and hopefully tons of helpful tools that are going to get you through this preserving process and make this very simple and help you to keep those fresh flavors of your end of summer bounty for you an entire winter long. So again, please let us know if you have any questions. And until then, from the Fresh Preserving Test Kitchen, I'm Jessica, and I hope you've had a great time, because I've had a great time hanging out with you tonight, and we'll talk to you later. Have a great day.